Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back here at ECCMID TV, brought live to you from the back of the exhibition hall here at the Bella Center in Copenhagen, Denmark. My name is Judith Cohen. I am your ECCMID TV host. And after another very lucky wheel of fortune, we are back with two more serious guests. I'm very honored to welcome back to my TV studio Professor Christian Giske, and also for the first time in the TV studio, Dr. Barbara Holzknecht. Welcome, both of you. You are here because of your roles in EUCAST, the European Committee for Antimicrobial Susceptibility Testing. So I think that's an excellent opportunity to have both of you here in your roles to tell our viewers a little bit more about the mission of the EUCAST. What are you doing? What are we working towards? Where do we want everything to go? So a warm welcome. Christian, you are the chair of the EUCAST. You have been for quite some time already, or?
Yes, I've been for 7 years. So,
yeah. So why is it important that there is a EUCAST?
Well, EUCAST, which is the European Committee on Antimicrobial Susceptibility Testing, has been around since 2002. And before there was EUCAST, there was no standardization of reporting of susceptibility in Europe. So all countries were using different standards, and this means that if you, as a patient, depending on which country you went to seek care, and if they had taken cultures and they had done susceptibility testing, then the results would not really be comparable between the countries. And this was a huge issue for a long time, but in 2002 the journey towards standardization started. And as we can see from some of the new implementation maps, it has really succeeded to implement one standard for the entire Europe, but also definitely beyond Europe. So we have users in Brazil, in Australia, we have African users, users in China. So basically we have a global outreach at this point and have managed to even transfer this idea of standardization much beyond the borders of Europe, which was the original remit.
Yeah, and this is important because if people have different use of different susceptibility cutoff values, this can really increase AMR probably, because there's inappropriate prescribing of antibiotics based on susceptibility testing results. Is
yes. To some extent, this is true. So the susceptibility testing results are used in different ways. One of them being in direct patient care, that you use it to guide in the individual patient, but you also use the susceptibility data on a more overall level to also say something about the level of antimicrobial resistance in society. And this is in Europe being monitored by one of the networks at the European Centers for Disease Prevention and Control, which is called ESCMID, who basically surveyed antimicrobial resistance in Europe. And the numbers from different countries would not be comparable, and it would be difficult to sometimes make rational decisions about which therapies to select. Not in the individual case, when you have a culture and everything, then you can select based on the testing, but sometimes you don't have a culture result and you still have to select an antimicrobial, and these data are important to be able to compare the AMR situation in different countries, and also to inform treatment guidelines and so on.
Yeah. So, Barbara, how long have you been with EUCAST now? You are a member of the General Committee.
Yes,
Could you explain a little bit about the role, your role within EUCAST?
Yeah. So I am the chairperson of the Danish NAC, the National AST Committee, and in that function I'm a part of the EUCAST General Committee, which comprises about 50 NAC chairpersons. And I think, well, what Christian just said, the EUCAST work on harmonization, on standardization is really something we as the daily users, I mean, this is the backbone of our AST, which we perform every day in the lab. And being a part of the EUCAST General Committee, well, it's easier to engage in EUCAST. It's you have the opportunity to be a little bit in the process of shaping EUCAST because you get consultations, public consultations. You can rely to. There are surveys on the usage, on availability, on dosing of certain antimicrobial agents in the different countries.
Yep.
So there are many opportunities as a general committee member to get engaged and be an active part.
That's something I was just wondering. Availability in such a large organization trying to get harmonization and standardization. Not every test is probably available in every country. Is that right? How do you manage that? How can you standardize if there are such large differences between countries?
Well, I think the EUCAST distribution method has been so much standardized and implemented in many countries. All these materials are readily available because they are used in so many laboratories. And there also EUCAST is doing a huge work in quality and assurance of these materials. EUCAST has done both studies on the discs and on the media, which is very, very helpful for all the labs performing distribution methodology every day.
Yeah. Christian, looking back on, you mentioned that 2002 EUCAST was started its existence. What have you reached? It's 2023 now. How much has been achieved?
Yeah, the achievements are quite extraordinary, I would say. I was not so much involved over the first 6-7 years. I joined somewhere around 2009.
Yeah.
First as a regular member and after that as the chairperson. But I followed quite a bit of the journey, and at the time when I arrived, there was already a first round of standardization and harmonization, which had been already done. Still, there was a number of so in antimicrobial susceptibility testing we have a reference method, which is the one that all other methods need to be calibrated against.
Yep.
But as Barbara mentioned, there is the disk diffusion method. This is one of the key methods in many places, and even though many of the reference methods cutoff values had been harmonized, it was still so that the countries used different variants of the surrogate methods. And during this time, shortly after I joined, there was a lot of work to introduce one disk diffusion method, which was also quite important to proceed with the standardization, and it may also have revealed other areas where we had to go back and also adjust some of the values that were initially agreed on. So there were new data coming and different things that would drive the decision to revisit some of the. So you could say after this startup phase, there was in pretty much the same way as for any business, a scale-up phase, and one where lots of adjustments needed to be done to increase the internal logic in the system and to tweak some of the settings to allow it to be more comprehensive and useful for the end users.
Yeah. So come a long way already. ECCMID. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to add for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to see Gunnar Kalmiter's Excellence Award lecture on Saturday, who gave a very nice overview over that journey.
Yes.
how it went harmonizing European AST methods.
Gunnar.
Gunnar Kalmüther,
that's-
He'll be here in our TV studio also, so
Yes,
I'll pick his brain about that some more.
This talk really summarizes the journey.
His work.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Barbara, the EUCAST also has a couple of EUCAST affiliated events this ECCMID, right? There was an educational workshop on Saturday also from the EUCAST.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Who was it intended for? What were the outcomes?
Yeah, well, the EUCAST educational workshop on the first day of ECCMID on Saturday before noon, I think is very much a tradition. I don't know how many years it has been held, ever since I have visited ECCMID, really. And it usually is 2 or 3 hours and covers all the new achievements of EUCAST of the past year. So it gives everyone responsible for AST in the labs or just interested in AST the opportunity to catch up what has been worked with in the last year, and also to interact with the steering committee, ask questions about why did you go this way, and new principles like breakpoints and brackets, and how to use the breakpoint table, certain.
So it's really an opportunity for EUCAST to share the new data with everyone involved. Yeah. So where is EUCAST focusing on the coming couple of years, Christian?
Yes, it's always an ongoing reappraisal of some of our cutoff values and methods to constantly scrutinize and see if there are adjustments needed. But we are also trying to bring susceptibility testing criteria for bacteria that didn't have in the past, and maybe also to some extent also didn't have a methodology. So there is still work ongoing to increase the number of bacterial species that has a susceptibility testing methodology and criteria for reporting. So that's very much ongoing. I think another important thing which is ongoing is how to describe how the reporting relates to antimicrobial dosing. We have come a long way to do that in adults, but we have also ongoing processes on how to do this in children, where the antimicrobial dosing is weight-based, and it's an entirely different ball game. And then I would also like to emphasize that many of our subcommittees, which we haven't touched upon, but they are doing some specific work. For instance, we have one for antifungals and one for mycobacteria, and they are doing very important work also with some of the microorganisms that for where there is still a great need for standardization, and also constantly both for the EUCAST steering committee and the subcommittees, there is constantly coming new drugs, and we need to be very fast at providing a way of testing those, because if they are already available on the market, we have a great responsibility to ensure that for patient safety that these new agents can be tested and that we can keep track of what happens after they have been launched on the market. So those are a few of the main things.
It's an impressive amount of work still lying ahead, but it's also impressive how much work has already been done. And I think that accounts for how impressive the size of the EUCAST is. It's a very large organization also. Thank you. I think we've given our TV viewers here a great insight in, well, maybe just a tip of the veil of what EUCAST entails, because a lot of work is being done and there's still to do. Thank you so much for taking the time, Barbara and Christian, to come here and explain us a little bit more about EUCAST. And for our viewers, if you want to look back on the on-demand platform for ECCMID, you can look back at the educational workshop from EUCAST, which was this Saturday, the 15th. So if you just search at EUCAST Educational Workshop, you'll find it and you'll be able to look back. We will also be taking a small break, and we will be back at the clock of 2, when we will be inviting yet another 2 guests. Both were panelists at the high-level collab meeting between ESCMID and the Global Leaders Group on AMR. So that's really interesting. We will be speaking with Professor Mark Bonte and Professor Evelina Tacconelli. So hope to see you all back here at 2.